December in New York always carries the scent of licorice, roasted chestnuts, and a chill as sharp as glass. For me, Anya Volkov, it also carried the smell of tension. Not the tension of the holiday, but the tension of a person standing behind the velvet curtain, adjusting the spotlight for others. I live and work in the shadows. My name isn't on any magazine cover, but everyone in the industry knows Anya Volkov is the silent brain behind the decade's most haunting hits, and especially behind Julian Rice. Julian. That name now echoes in every corner of the city, illuminated on the giant electronic billboards in Times Square. His voice drifts from every shop, every cafe. He is the new pop rock star, with that artistic, curly hair, the deep blue eyes of a dreamer, and that husky, deeply yearning voice. He has just been nominated for 6 Grammy Awards. Tonight at the Winter Star Awards at Madison Square Garden, he will officially transition from phenomenon to legend. We have walked this path together for nearly 10 years, from that cramped Brooklyn attic apartment where we lived on instant noodles and faith, to this magnificent stage. I was the one who pushed him to write those introspective songs, to delve into the pain he always tried to hide. I was the one who stayed up hundreds of nights, not to write the music, because that talent was his, but to arrange, organize his ideas, define his style, plan his media strategy, and, most importantly, I was the one who pulled him out of the abyss of depression and addiction during those challenging early years when no one knew him. I distinctly remember those first nights in Brooklyn. Julian sat by his old guitar, his fingers trembling from lack of alcohol, his voice lost amidst the sound of ambulance sirens echoing from the street. "Anya, I can't do this anymore," he whispered, his head bowed. I sat next to him, held his hand, and told him stories from my childhood in Russia, the long winters in Moscow, where the snow blanketed everything white and everything seemed endless. "Pain is fuel, Julian. Use it to write." And he wrote. Those first tracks, rough but authentic, were the result of nights like that. I, Anya, am Julian Rice's architect. I am the foundation, the concrete, the invisible yet steadfast structure. Now I am in the VIP holding room, just a few dozen yards from the stage, but it is an infinite distance. I am not the one who will walk beside him on the red carpet. I am the one who will sit in the technical booth, ready to fine-tune the sound and lights for his live performance. The piano accompaniment in Ashes of December must be brought forward during the bridge. I instructed the lighting technician through my headset, my voice low and firm, completely opposite to the excited shouting outside. Julian needs that moment of silence before the explosion, and remember, do not let the mic pick up my voice going into his earpiece. That was our code. Every important performance, I would be the only one speaking into his earpiece. I would read him poetry, remind him of old memories to draw out his emotion, or simply tell him to breathe. It was the invisible thread connecting us, a secret known only to the two of us. It started with our first gig in a tiny bar when Julian panicked because of the crowd. "Anya, are you there?" he whispered into the mic. "I'm always here," I replied, and he sang like he had never sung before. I looked at the TV screen. Julian was stepping onto the red carpet. He looked perfect, a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, deliberately tousled hair, that trademark half-smirk. Cameras flashed like a storm of light. The fans calling his name sounded like a fervent anthem. And then, my heart gave a sharp, icy pang colder than the New York street air. Beside Julian, it was not me, but Serafina Thorne. She is an A-list actress, model, a Hollywood muse, with a sharp beauty, shimmering blonde hair, and cold, powerful eyes. She wore a silver gown, sparkling like freshly formed ice, her hand tightly linked through Julian's arm. They laughed, they whispered, they looked like a couple destined to rule the world. I knew Serafina. She was Julian's recent advertising partner, collaborating on a luxury perfume campaign. Julian once told me, "It's just work, Anya. She's cold and boring." We laughed about it in our cozy apartment when he held me from behind and whispered, "You are the real inspiration." But that cold and boring person was standing exactly where I should have been. Reporters pressed Serafina about their relationship. Serafina smiled, a smile full of mystery and triumph. Julian, facing millions of camera lenses, looked directly at the camera. Those blue eyes were no longer mine. Serafina and I, his voice rang out clearly through the loudspeakers in the technical room, found each other through our careers. She is my true inspiration. We are a symphony, a harmony I've never known. The entire technical room fell silent. Cameras flashed frantically. Symphony, harmony. He had never used those words to describe me. We were flesh and blood, bone and marrow, survival. The words he used for me were, "You are my breath," on nights he woke up from nightmares, and I held him until dawn. My throat was dry, but my hands remained steady. "It's just a media strategy," a rational part of me screamed. "It's just PR." Julian told me about this plan, to create buzz and boost album sales. But why didn't he warn me? Why didn't he look at me and tell me? But then, a bolder reporter asked, "There were rumors about another woman in your life, someone who helped you significantly in the early years." Julian narrowed his eyes, appearing annoyed. He looked straight into the camera, and this time his gaze was like a silver bullet piercing through me, through 10 years of history. "Ah, that girl." Julian gave a dismissive laugh, a smile I had never seen on his face, cold, distant, and utterly scornful. "Ah, Anya? Yes. Well, she used to be my studio assistant. She was a good person, but perhaps got a little too invested in her role. We ended all contracts a long time ago. Don't let those false fairy tales interfere with this wonderful event." The silence in the technical room was now so thick I could hear the snow falling outside. Studio assistant? False fairy tale? I stood frozen, my heart frozen. I remembered the first time he called me my backstage queen during a late recording session when he kissed me and said, "You are everything, Anya. Without you, I'm just empty sound." Now he reduced me to an assistant, an irrelevant side character? Everyone in the room looked at me, their eyes filled with pity and curiosity. A young technician whispered, "Are you okay, Miss Anya?" "I think I should go," I said, my voice still calm, only slightly strained. "Wish everyone luck with Julian's performance." I turned, walking out of the technical room. I did not cry. I did not tremble. I felt as if all the blood in my body had solidified into stone. Outside, New York blazed with Christmas lights. The colossal trees at Rockefeller Center sparkled. Crowds of tourists took photos and festive music echoed from the shops. But for me, the city had completely drowned in a hopeless gray snow color. I walked, not because I didn't have a car, but because I needed the painful sensation of the cold to prove that I was still alive. I strode down Fifth Avenue, where every shop window was lavishly decorated with soaring Christmas trees, sparkling ornaments, and thousands of warm yellow lights. People walked along the street, hand in hand, carrying large gift bags from Saks Fifth Avenue, their faces beaming. It was the perfect image of Christmas that Julian and I had once promised ourselves. Success, happiness, and together. We had planned for this year, a trip to Aspen, skiing, and cuddling by the fireplace. "You deserve it all, Anya," he said when his album went platinum. But this year, my Christmas was just an empty shell. I recalled last Christmas. We were still in our old apartment in Brooklyn before he moved to the Manhattan penthouse. Julian was still anxious about his career. The first album had only sold a few thousand copies. He had personally decorated a tiny, crooked Christmas tree, using steel coat hangers as hooks. He gave me a simple silver ring, bought from a flea market in Chelsea Market. "One day, Anya," he said, candlelight flickering in his eyes, reflected by the old gas fireplace, "I'll buy you a diamond bigger than the Christmas lights in Times Square. We'll fly to Paris on Christmas Eve, drinking champagne by the Seine." That night, I gave him the finalized demo of Ashes of December, the song I had to push him to write after a major crisis. He had drunk too much, lying on the floor, crying because he felt like a failure. I sat beside him, holding him, and whispered the lyrics I had drafted from my own pain, the loss of my father, the loss of hope. He used my words, turning them into a hit. Now, the diamond he bought has been given to Serafina Thorne. I saw her Instagram photo, the ring sparkling on her slender finger, captioned, "True Christmas Light." I pulled out my phone. Within just 1 hour, the storm had hit. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, every platform was exploding. Hashtag Julian and Serafina was the #1 hashtag with millions of tweets. But more horrifying was what they wrote about me. "Anya, what? Who is that? Is she trying to latch on to Julian for fame? Heard she's some greedy old hag who tried to control Julian. Thank goodness he escaped. Studio assistant. How dared she call herself his girlfriend? How pathetic." The tabloids quickly dug up my profile. Anya Volkov, the ex-assistant. They posted old, poor-quality photos of me backstage during recording sessions, wearing old hoodies, hair tied up, comparing them to Serafina's perfect beauty and radiant glamour in couture gowns. That comparison was a fatal blow, like a knife slicing into my flesh. The Daily Post. Julian Reese-Clean cleans up past mess, officially declares love for Symphony Serafina Thorne. The Celebrity Weekly. The forgotten assistant, the woman standing behind always gets left behind. In particular, Julian's official fan account with millions of followers started circulating a meme, an image of me standing forlornly in the studio next to the caption, "I helped him, but Serafina is the one he chose." The meme was shared thousands of times, accompanied by mocking comments. This public humiliation before millions of people beneath the brilliant Christmas lights was the first cut of the ice. It was not just the dissolution of a relationship. It was the rejection of my entire worth and the pain that the media was told to forget. I know Julian. He didn't just say those words for PR. He allowed his agency to push me into the mud to elevate his image as the solitary genius. Fame had turned him into a stranger, a cruelly ungrateful person. Months ago, he was still whispering he loved me, but the pressure from his agency, "We need a new image, Julian. Anya is too ordinary," had probably changed him. I stepped into a dark alley, away from the flickering Christmas lights. Heavy snow began to fall, clinging to my hair, melting coldly on my scalp. I leaned against the frigid wall, taking a deep breath, feeling like ice and snow were flooding my lungs. I couldn't go back to the apartment. That apartment was Julian's, although I paid half the rent. Everything there carried his scent, the scent of his guitar, the expensive cologne he now used.
The photos we had taped to the wall, the handwritten song drafts on the desk, were all slicing knives. I had nowhere to go. My family was on the other side of the country, in Seattle, and they never truly understood my career or my relationship with Julian. My mother, a retired teacher, always said, "You should find a stable job, Anya. Showbiz is too risky." My father was long gone, and the memory of him only deepened the pain. I opened my contacts, searching for Lena's number, my only close friend in the industry. Lena is a famous stylist who had designed Julian's outfits in the early years, from old clothes to high-end tuxedos. She was the only one who knew all our secrets. I called. Lena picked up immediately. "Anya, oh my God, where are you? Did you see that disgusting performance? Julian is a monster." "I'm walking," I said, my voice slightly trembling from the cold. I don't know where to go, Lena." "Don't worry, you won't be alone on Christmas Eve. I'm coming to get you. I'm taking you somewhere no one can find you, at least until the storm passes. Stay right there, I'm coming now." Lena's concern was the only warm spark in that cold night. I hung up, looking up at the New York sky. Large white snowflakes fell on my face, washing away a little of the bitterness. I remembered another Christmas, a more painful one. When I was 10, my father was in a car accident on Christmas Eve, rushing to buy me a gift from the local market. I spent Christmas Day in the hospital, watching the lights flicker outside the window, hearing the beeping of machines. My mother cried by the bedside, and I sat alone in the hallway clutching the small snow globe he had given me the year before. And now, Julian had repeated that, but more devastatingly. He had taken away not just my love, but my honor, the pain that he had built himself upon my ashes. When Lena arrived, driving her black SUV, rolling through the snow, I got in without a word. She hugged me, and we drove away in silence, leaving the city lights behind.
Lena took me to her small loft apartment in the Lower East Side, a cozy and cluttered space, far removed from the glamour of Midtown. Her apartment didn't have a big Christmas tree, only a few chilly blue LED string lights draped across the window, reflecting the streets below. "I'm sorry," Lena said, pouring me a hot red wine mixed with cinnamon and honey from a thermos to ward off the cold. "I tried not to decorate much. Christmas isn't easy for me either." Lena also had her own sad story around the holidays. She lost her mother on a Christmas night many years ago in a car accident in Los Angeles while her mother was driving home from an extra shift. Since then, she always tried to avoid the festive atmosphere, only decorating minimally so clients wouldn't think she was cold. This unspoken empathy made me feel less alone. We sat in the dark, with only the streetlights filtering through the window, shining on the photos Lena had hung on the wall, the outfits she had designed for various stars. I told her everything, from the moment Julian put Serafina's hand on his arm, to his venomous words on TV, and the way he looked directly into the camera as if speaking only to me. "He is a true performer," I concluded in a dry voice. "He doesn't just perform on stage, he performs his entire life." Lena slammed her hand down on the old wooden table, making the wine glass rattle slightly. "He's a bastard, Anya. I know I'm not a songwriter, but I know who created Ashes of December. That was your pain, your depression that he borrowed to write. You were the one who helped him climb out of that rut. He is a product, and you are the producer." "Now I'm the failed assistant," I said with a laugh, a sound devoid of any amusement. "Right now, his fans are flooding all my accounts, commenting with snake emojis. His agency is manipulating every story, turning me into a stalker, a weak, obsessive girl. They even leaked old messages, quoting sections where I talked about controlling his image, turning it into proof that I was a manipulator." That's how showbiz works. It's not simply a betrayal, it's a deliberate media campaign aimed at destroying me, ensuring I could never stand up and tell my side of the story. Julian was building his empire on my ashes. I opened Lena's laptop,
reviewed the articles, and saw that his agency, Stellar Entertainment, had hired bots to spread the meme, making the hashtag Anya the Stalker trend. The next morning, the media storm intensified. An exclusive article appeared in The Hollywood Reporter, a prestigious publication, by an influential journalist named Marcus Kane. Marcus Kane was a confidant of Julian's agency, having been invited to his private parties before. The article didn't directly attack me, but skillfully painted a portrait of Julian as an artist stifled in an unhealthy relationship, emotionally manipulated by someone who didn't understand art and only cared about money. Julian Reese had to fight to escape the shadow of his past, where he was bound by unrealistic personal expectations. The article claimed. Conversely, Serafina was described as the savior, the one who liberated him from confinement, who brought the true inspiration, the noble romance he deserved. I read the article, my hands trembling. Julian did not just deny my contributions, he had stolen my pain, distorted my story, and used it as a fairy tale of his own triumph. I opened the window. Snow was still falling, but it was no longer a romantic sight. It was a siege, like the negative comments surrounding me. "Anya?" Lena called, bringing me breakfast, toast and coffee from the shop downstairs. "You can't stay here forever. You need to go somewhere further than New York. You need to hide, heal, and find yourself again." I looked in the mirror. The woman reflected there was gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes. The former strength was gone, replaced only by emptiness and pain. "I will go," I said, my voice determined. "But I won't hide, Lena. I'm going to start over. Julian thinks my contract is over. I'm going to show him my real contract." I remembered a place I had promised myself never to return to. It was where Christmas had first fallen apart. Berlin, where my grandparents had lived before immigrating to America. "Help me get to Berlin. I have an old contact there. I need a fresh start, total anonymity, and I need to reclaim the material that created Julian Reese. I need to take it back." Lena looked at me, her eyes filled with admiration and worry. "What are you going to do, Anya?" I gave a small smirk, the first one in 3 days. It was cold and sharp. "I'm going to write. I'm going to write about his betrayal. I'm going to write the biggest hit of all time." Lena nodded, and we began to plan. She contacted Klaus Schneider, the old contact in Berlin, and bought a plane ticket. Meanwhile, I packed what little I had left, the hard drive containing old recordings, my old journal, and the broken snow globe from when I was 10, which I had fixed as a symbol of hope.
In just 1 week, Lena had arranged everything. She rented a small, modest apartment in Berlin, near Prenzlauer Berg, an old neighborhood, rich in art yet quiet, with small cafes and local Christmas markets selling hot Glühwein. She bought me a plane ticket with cash, and I flew out with no significant luggage, carrying only an old laptop, a few warm clothes, and the hard drive containing thousands of recordings, musical ideas, and monologues from Julian's early days. I chose Berlin not by chance. This city, with its heavy history and gloomy winter, was the perfect antidote to the artificial glamour of Los Angeles or New York. Here, the Christmas lights were not brilliant and alluring like in America, but amber-colored sparks, gentle and ancient, casting light through the cold silver mist from the Spree River. I remembered my grandparents telling stories about Cold War Berlin, where everything was divided and hope was just small fragments. I reconnected with Klaus Schneider, an old music producer of Julian's. Klaus was an older man with salt and pepper hair and tired eyes that always looked straight to the point. He had once been Julian's mentor, but Julian abandoned him when he insisted that he focus more on quality than PR strategy. Klaus lived in a small studio in Kreuzberg, where the walls were covered with old posters of German rock bands. Julian said he needed a new sound, I told Klaus in his dusty old recording studio, which smelled of cigarette smoke and lingering incense, as we sat over cups of strong black coffee. Klaus shrugged, lighting a hand-rolled cigarette. Julian has always been a pursuer of glamour, Anya. You know that. He's talented, but he doesn't have the true blood of an artist. He needed something bigger than himself. Before, it was you. Now it's Serafina. But you have the blood, Anya. I saw it from day one. I rented a small corner in Klaus's studio. It was a messy room, but it held an old piano from the East German era with yellowed ivory keys, yet a deep, resonant sound. This soundproof room became my only world. But the trauma did not easily let go. Night after night, I was still haunted by the images from New York. Serafina proud on the red carpet, Julian denying me, the humiliating articles. I couldn't sleep. I felt trapped. Walking through the streets of Berlin, past the Christmas market at Alexanderplatz, where the smell of grilled wurst and Glühwein made me homesick, but also made me sadder. One evening, as heavy snow fell, I went on social media, despite Lena warning me against it. I saw a video of Julian and Serafina enjoying an early Christmas holiday at a ski resort in Switzerland. They were skiing, laughing, looking unbearably happy. Julian even posted a photo with the caption, "Real Christmas is when you are next to the person who brings light to your life. Serafina is my Christmas song." It reminded me of the Christmas when I was 10. After my father's accident, I was left alone in the hospital. The next morning, I saw a small Christmas tree hastily decorated by a nurse. Another young patient, also staying overnight, gave me a small glass snow globe with a scene of falling snow inside. "Christmas is about healing," the boy told me. "As long as the snow is falling in the globe, hope still exists." But there was no healing that Christmas. My father passed away a week later. The snow globe broke when I was packing to leave the hospital. I mended it later, but the crack remained. And now, Julian's words, "Serafina is my Christmas song," felt like a hammer smashing the last snow globe in my heart. I slid down onto the studio floor, curled up in the cold of the room. Tears began to fall, not for Julian, but for myself. I had lost myself, lost my talent to build someone else up. I cried for the sleepless nights, for the sacrifices, for the betrayed trust. When the tears ran dry, I looked up at the old piano. The ivory keys glowed faintly in the weak light from the street lamp. Enough. I stood up. I was no longer the hunted Anya Volkov. I was Anya Volkov who wrote Julian Reese's Breath. I was the one who could write a hit song. I opened my laptop. I started rereading old notes, recordings from Julian's years of suffering, the parts where he cried, where he spoke of his fear of failure. I began to write. But this time, I wasn't writing for him. I was writing for myself. I was writing about the betrayal under the Christmas lights. I was writing about the pain of someone rejected. I started with a simple title, The December Song. I would not write a sad ballad. I would write a powerful rock-pop anthem, a declaration of emergence. I would use all the anger, the bitterness, and the betrayal as my material. The songwriting process was not easy. There were nights I slammed my hands on the keys crying because the melody wouldn't come. Klaus advised me to rest, but I couldn't. I walked through Berlin, past the Brandenburg Gate, where snow lay white, seeking inspiration from the coldness. Gradually, the song took shape. It had a strong melody, with a chorus that exploded like an avalanche,
While I was struggling with the music in Berlin, the media storm in America continued to rage. Julian and Serafina had become the new power couple in Hollywood. Everything was perfectly staged. Serafina, with her shrewdness and influence, helped Julian penetrate major film projects, solidifying his position not just as a singer, but as a versatile icon. They appeared on the cover of Vogue, recounting their destined love story. Julian's agency succeeded in turning me into a meme, a cautionary tale. Never date your assistant, they will try to latch onto you. Lena was the only one who constantly updated me with news. She was both my friend and my unpaid spy. She called weekly, talking about parties where people whispered about me. They call you crazy, Anya, but some people know the truth. They are supporting you. You wouldn't believe it, Lena called me one afternoon, her voice full of indignation. They fabricated a text message, an old message of yours, but they edited it, making it look like you were threatening him, telling him he had to honor your contribution or you would destroy his career. It went viral on Reddit. My tears had long drawn dry. Anger had replaced them, a cold, focused energy. Don't pay attention to it, Lena. That's what they want, my reaction, I said. Now I need you to focus on something else. I'm close to finishing the new track. I need you to find an artist. Someone not like Julian, a female singer with enough talent and independence to tell this story without meeting Julian's spotlight. Lena was a stylist, but she had deep connections in the music world. She started searching, contacting independent singers across Europe. Meanwhile, Klaus and I began to work. Klaus, who had worked with big names like David Bowie in his later years, was initially skeptical of the project. It's too personal, Anya, too bitter, he warned, sitting at the control board adjusting the sound. Pop music needs romance, escapism, not revenge. Pop art also needs truth, Klaus, I countered. And my truth right now is the pain of betrayal. This song isn't revenge, it's survival. I won't name Julian, but everyone will know. I worked furiously. I no longer cared about my appearance. I ate, slept, and breathed music. I channeled all the rejected emotions into every note, every lyric. There were days I didn't leave the studio, eating only sandwiches from the nearby shop, listening to the demo repeatedly. It was a painful healing process. Every time I touched the piano keys, I relived the memories of the cramped apartment, the promises, the words of love. But this time, I didn't allow myself to drown. I forced that pain to transform into strength, to become an unforgettable melody. I used the motif of flickering Christmas lights in the song. I remembered the feeling of the Christmas lights at the hospital, flickering, signaling my father's death. Now I used it as a symbol of deception, the lights of fame, the lights of glamour, flickering and revealing the cold truth beneath. Finally, I completed the track. The December song was a dramatic piece, blending a powerful rock sensibility with lyrical sophistication. It told the story of a woman left behind during the holiday season, but instead of collapsing, she used the wreckage to rebuild her own throne. Klaus, after listening to the final demo, stood up and applauded slowly. "It's not revenge, Anya," he said, his eyes wide with astonishment. "It's a queen's declaration. We need a voice that can carry that much pride and pain." Just then, Lena called. She had found the person, Elsa Moreau. Elsa was a French singer known for her independent music career with a powerful voice, but who had never truly broken through internationally. She had the pride of a Parisian, the sharp intellect, and most importantly, she hated the pretense of American showbiz. Elsa had also been betrayed by a producer, and her story resonated with mine. I sent the demo to Elsa. 2 days later, she flew to Berlin. We met in the Chili studio. Elsa listened to the track, her caramel-colored eyes fixed on me. She wore a fur coat, her hair tied back, looking like an exiled queen. When the song ended, she looked at me. "Your story, isn't it, Anya? I feel the pain in every word."
My story, I confirmed, but it will be the story of millions of betrayed women. Elsa smiled, a powerful and knowing smile. We won't just sing about betrayal, Anya. We will sing about how they were wrong to think they could discard us. I was once left behind like you. Let's make this song a weapon. And just like that, I was no longer the hunted Anya Volkov. I was Anya Volkov, producer. I had found my light, not the faint glow from behind the stage, but the dazzling light of independent creation. We worked for months refining the track, shooting a demo video. Elsa added a French flair to the lyrics, making it multilingual, increasing its global appeal. Klaus contacted independent distributors, avoiding the major agencies. Meanwhile, Julian tried to contact me. He sent texts, "Anya, we need to talk. It was just PR." I deleted them all, not responding.
In the following weeks, we worked non-stop. Klaus, Elsa, and I formed an unbeatable trio. Klaus handled the technical aspects, minimalism and sonic depth, using old but effective software to create complex audio layers. Elsa brought a full-bodied emotional voice, unafraid to sing with anger and pride. She recorded for hours, perfecting every high note, and I was the strategic brain and the emotional heart of the project. I knew exactly how this track needed to hit the audience, not just their ears, but their hearts. We decided to launch the single, The December Song, on Christmas Eve. This was an incredibly audacious move. Christmas Eve is when people gather and listen to warm music like All I Want for Christmas Is You, not a powerful song about betrayal. But that's when people are loneliest, Anya, I explained to Klaus and Elsa during a meeting over hot glühwein. That's when those who are left behind feel the pain most acutely. It won't be a song about love. It's a song about the capacity for self-love amid holiday brokenness. It will be the Christmas letter the betrayed want to send. Our media strategy was the complete opposite of Julian's glamorous campaign. No fanfare, no red carpet, no rumors. We released only one simple promotional image, Anya Volkov, my name, standing for the first time next to Elsa Moreau under a cool studio light. The caption had just one sentence. The December Song. The real story begins now. The appearance of my name on a major music campaign immediately attracted attention. The media started getting curious. Anya Volkov? Could this be Julian Reese's former assistant? What's going on? Is she trying to get revenge? Julian and his agency tried to ignore it. They continued to push the perfect couple image with Serafina, posting romantic Christmas photos from photo studios, complete with trees and presents. But their silence did not last. 2 days before Christmas Eve, Lena sent me shocking news. Serafina had been caught at a restaurant in Los Angeles, arguing fiercely with a famous director, someone she was rumored to have had a secret relationship with even before meeting Julian. A paparazzo recorded the clip, in which Serafina clearly said one line, "Julian is just a tool to get me on Time magazine. He's too easy to control." A scandal erupted. The perfection of the Serafina-Julian couple was shattered. Julian's fans started to become suspicious, commenting online, "Serafina is so fake. Julian is being used." His agency tried to quash it, but the fire had spread. It was at that exact moment that I dropped my trump card, the full track. Christmas Eve. New York was bitterly cold, but everywhere blazed with fireworks and music. Julian and Serafina were preparing to appear at the biggest Christmas concert special on American television, an event watched live by millions. Klaus, Elsa, and I were in Berlin, watching the live broadcast from the recording studio, connected to a large screen. At 11:59 p.m., right before the clock struck midnight for Christmas Day, the December Song was released across all international music platforms,
accompanied by a simple yet haunting music video. The video featured only Elsa standing on an empty stage surrounded by Christmas lights. However, as she sang about broken promises, the Christmas lights began to flicker, then went completely dark, leaving her in a single spot of darkness illuminated only by a straight spotlight from above. The visual effect was designed by Klaus, using old LED lights to create an authentic feel. And the lyrics? The lyrics were a powerful punch. You thought you burned me down to ashes, but I was the ember. Your fire only made me glow brighter. You were the December song, but I am the eternal Christmas. Julian's name was never mentioned once, but the details, the emotions, the cold indignation, and the resolute surge spoke volumes. It was a direct, subtle, and artistic response to Julian's public humiliation. Within an hour, social media sites and music forums exploded. This is Anya Volkov's answer. My God, it's brilliant. This song is the truth. Julian lied. Listen to this track, feel the pain and the power. She's not an assistant. She is a genius. Meanwhile, on the live television broadcast, Julian had just finished his performance of Ashes of December. He was standing on stage, and Serafina was about to step out to join him for the Christmas Wishes segment. Just then, a snippet of the December song was accidentally played for about 1 second, right over the national broadcast. It was the work of Lena and a few loyal old friends, a hacker acquaintance from their Brooklyn days. It was a perfectly orchestrated glitch, enough to draw attention without resulting in a lawsuit. Julian's face went pale. He knew. He knew what I had done. The camera zoomed in on his face, and the audience saw a fleeting moment of panic. The next morning, the December song topped charts worldwide, breaking all online streaming records on Spotify and Apple Music. Top music critics who had once praised Julian now had to acknowledge the new genius, Elsa Moreau, and especially Anya Volkov, the mind behind it all. Rolling Stone wrote, Anya Volkov didn't just rise, she redefined pop music. The truth was exposed. Julian and Serafina faded into the background, their image framed by artificiality and lies. The scandal spread. Fans turned away, and his agency had to organize an emergency press conference. I looked out the window of the Berlin studio. The snow had stopped falling. The first light of Christmas morning shone into the room. I smiled. It was a cold smile, but I was no longer alone.
1 year later, Anya Volkov was no longer an assistant. I was one of the world's most sought-after music producers and songwriters. I had moved to London, where I had my own studio in Soho, a cozy and inspiring space with glass walls overlooking the River Thames. My name, Anya Volkov, stood next to Elsa Moreau's on the cover of Time magazine, the very magazine Serafina had wanted to use Julian to get onto. We were dubbed the New Music Queens. This year on Christmas Eve, I was attending a royal charity gala in London, held in an ancient, magnificent building akin to Kensington Palace. I wore an emerald green evening gown. The lights sparkled off my jewelry and my confident smile. I needed no one to escort me. Elsa stood beside me. We were partners. Just as I was discussing a major project, a soundtrack for a blockbuster film, with a Hollywood producer, I felt a hand lightly touch my arm. I turned around. It was Julian. He no longer possessed his former glamour. His career had stalled after the scandal. His new album failed, and Serafina had left him after the incident.
He looked tired. His deep blue eyes were now filled with regret, devoid of arrogance. "Anya," he said, his voice husky, carrying the heartbreaking familiarity of the past. "You look stunning. I didn't expect to see you here." I looked straight into his eyes. There was no hatred, only infinite distance. "Thank you, Julian. Are you doing well? I heard your new album was interesting." "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice lowered, filled with that old yearning. "You know you're the only one who truly understands me. Everything with Serafina, it was just a mistake. The agency forced me. You are my true Christmas light." I saw a glimmer of the old flame attempting to resurface in him, hoping I was still the weak former assistant. I smiled, an expensive smile, one that could not be bought with any contract. "Julian," I said, my voice calm, ringing out amid the soft Christmas music from the live orchestra. "I've heard those words before. You said Serafina was your Christmas song. You said I was the false fairy tale. You stripped me of my honor and my career to build yourself up." Stepped a little closer, just enough for him to hear. "Betrayal, Julian, is not a mistake. It is a choice, and you made yours." I looked around the ballroom. Everyone was counting down to midnight. The Christmas lights were brilliant and splendid, but this time they shone on me. I took my phone from my clutch, opened an app, and showed Julian. It was breaking news. The December song had been nominated for 6 Grammy Awards, including Song of the Year and Record of the Year. You want to return to the past? I'm sorry. I've been busy building a future. You are a part of my past, a painful lesson, but I have graduated. I turned my back, giving him no opportunity to speak further. Elsa touched my arm, whispering, "Well done, Queen." As I walked away, I looked out the window. Snow was falling gently over London. It was a perfect Christmas night. I smiled to myself, no longer alone. That Christmas, I realized that betrayal was merely a gift wrapped in tinfoil. Inside, it was freedom. Freedom to write my own story, and freedom to shine brighter than any festive light. I raised my glass of champagne, toasting myself. The queen of the backstage was now the queen of the stage, and my story was just beginning.